Stevens, thanks very much for coming into the studio and talking to us this morning. Now then, 11 months ago, we'd never even heard of COVID-19. But earlier this week, the news broke that we've got a vaccine that, so far at least, is promising to be more effective than anyone could have dreamed. The wonder of science. It was created by the husband and wife team, Uğur Şahin and Özlem Türeci, who run BioNTech. I spoke to Mr. Şahin yesterday, and I began by asking him when we will know that the vaccine is safe to use.
What we are seeing so far indicates that the vaccine has the typical vaccine-associated side effect profile. That means the people who receive the vaccine have pain in the injection site for a few days, which is mild to moderate, and a proportion of the participants who receive the vaccine has fever, also for 1 to 2 days, and the fever is also mild to moderate. These are the key side effects that we have seen, and we did not see any other serious side effects which would result in pausing or halting of the study. We have now safety data for a proportion of the subjects for more than two months, and we are continuing to collect this data for more than 2 years to really not only to see the short and midterm side effect profile, but also the long-term side effect profile. But so far, the safety profile appears to be absolutely benign.
Will your vaccine be able to be used in combination with, for instance, the AstraZeneca vaccine and others?
So at the beginning, it does not make sense to combine vaccines. And so every vaccine has been clinically evaluated as a prime boost. So that means most vaccines are based on a first injection, and after 3 weeks or after four weeks, a second injection. And I wouldn't mix that, because this has not been evaluated for safety. But if after 1 year, for example, if someone who has received an AstraZeneca vaccine, and who does not anymore have an immune response, then it could be combined with a BioNTech Pfizer vaccine, or vice versa.
Do we know how long the immunity lasts after the second dose?
We don't know. So we need to collect this data. We can, at the moment, only extrapolate some of the existing data. With this extrapolation, one can expect that the antibody response and the T-cell response, so it is well known that T-cell responses are very long-lived. So after people who, for example, had SARS infection more than 18 years ago, have been identified having still T-cell responses. So the antibody response might decline over time, and we expect it will decline over time. But what is not known, how fast it will decline, and whether after 1 year, for example, sufficient antibody titers are still there. We are collecting this information, and we will see it. And if the antibody response, for example, after 1 year appeared to be too low, we can do a booster immunization, which should not be too complicated.
So we're all accustomed to getting annual flu jabs. Is it going to be more or less the same kind of thing, annual COVID-19 jabs in the years ahead?
Yeah, so the flu is a little bit different, because with flu we are really dealing every year with a different strain or different strains. So with the COVID-19, of course, has some mutations, but so far the mutations are very distinct, and I don't expect that the virus will have a dramatic shift, which is observed, for example, for influenza. So the only reason for booster immunizations will be if we realize that there is no protection after 1 year, and we have to see that. It could be that it's immunization each year, every second year, or even every 5 years. So we really need to generate data to answer this question. We did not yet investigate the mutations which came from the minks. That will happen in the next 2 weeks. And I'm also confident that these mutations, because they are, even though there are several mutations, they are relatively small mutations, and we are confident that the broad immune response that we are generating by our immunogen would be able to inactivate even these variants, because 99% of the virus spike proteins remains still stable.
Now, clearly, you understand this vaccine better than anybody else. Is it as effective in older people as it is in younger people?
We have reported efficacy over 90%. So that means they, and we had in our clinical trial also elderly people was in the range of 35 to 40%. So I expect that it is also effective in elderly people, but I can't say at the moment how effective it is. We are now waiting for the final analysis, efficacy analysis of this trial, which will happen in the next 10 days to 3 weeks. And with this, we will have the full data set in 164 infected subjects. And then we can say how many of them were in elderly people in the control group, how many are in the vaccine group. And we can provide this information. It will just take another few weeks.
So here's the really big question that I don't understand at all. Does the vaccine simply stop symptoms in people with COVID-19, or does it stop the virus being spread?
I expect, so we did not formally answer these questions. We can indirectly answer this question in a few months by also evaluating, for example, antibodies in subjects in both groups, which are not directed against the immunogen, but against other proteins of the virus. That could give us an idea. Yeah. But as a scientist, and from extrapolation, what we have seen so far for other viruses, I would expect that high efficacy in preventing disease translates into at least some efficacy in preventing infection. So I'm very confident and that transmission between people will be reduced by such a highly effective vaccine. Yeah? Maybe not 90%, but maybe 50%. But we should not forget that even that could result in a dramatic reduction of the pandemic spread.
Now, a week ago today, you were sitting there waiting for the phone call to tell you whether this vaccine worked, and if so, how effectively. Just tell us a little bit about the moment when the phone rang.
I knew that we will get a call at 8, and providing us this answer. And I got the call from Albert Bohler, who is the CEO of Pfizer, and meanwhile also a good friend. And he called me and asked me if I would like to know if the trial is positive. And I said, no, but then I said, of course. And he said, sit down, and provided me the information that the trial is positive, and which was extremely relieving. As a scientist, you of course expect a certain likelihood that the trial could be positive based on the data we had so far, but there is always unknown factors. And it could be that there is a scientific, biological, or medical reason why the vaccine does not work. We now know that our vaccine works, and most likely other vaccines will also work. So this is really a message which not only changes the fate how we develop vaccines, but also increases the likelihood that we will be able to get this pandemic under control.
And how did you celebrate?
We did not have a lot of opportunity to celebrate. We just discussed the road. So I discussed that with my wife, Özlem Türeci, how fantastic this result is. It is an extraordinary result. We sit together and had a tea together and just recapitulated the last months until we got this data, and it is relieving, and of course it provides joy.
Well, of course, everyone in Britain will be delighted that you had a cup of tea to celebrate.
This is not only British, this is also Turkish.
Very good. Well, can this vaccine be adapted for other diseases, for instance, cancer?
Our main application for messenger RNA vaccines so far were in the cancer field, and is still in the cancer field. We're using messenger RNA vaccine to induce immune responses against tumor cells by identifying mutations and by identifying tumor antigens which are expressed in different tumors. These are clinical trials which are ongoing, and we will we are expecting clinical results, efficacy results in 2 years from now. And this could be, of course, also an exciting development.
That does sound very exciting. Meanwhile, President Trump has said that without his Operation Warpspeed, neither you nor Pfizer could have achieved that. Is that true?
We had decided from the very beginning to stay independent and to ensure that regardless what happens, that we are able to deliver the vaccine to any place on the planet where it is needed. And therefore we didn't get direct support from the Operation Warpspeed, but it was good to see how this was organized, and we of course ensured that there is a harmonization and compatibility of the clinical trial protocols that are used in the Operation Warpspeed and our operation, which is called Lightspeed.
Now, in this country, we had a yes, yes, yes moment when a leading academic said he thought we would be back to normal by the spring because of the vaccine. So what is your assessment? Will we be back to normal? And if so, when?
This winter will be hard. Yeah, so we will not have a big impact on the infection numbers with our vaccine in this winter. If everything continues to go well, we will start to deliver the vaccine end of this year, beginning next year. Our goal is to deliver more than 300 millions of vaccine doses until April next year, which could allow us to already start to make an impact. The bigger impact will happen until summer. Yeah, the summer will help us anyway because the infection rate will go down in summer. And what is absolutely essential is that we get a high vaccination rate until or before autumn, winter next year. So that means all the immunization vaccination approaches must be accomplished before next autumn. Yeah, and I'm confident that this will happen because there are a number of vaccine companies helping us to increase the supply and so that we could have a normal winter next year.
So that sounds like a lot of work ahead. So for you, I suppose, back to the laboratory, not to the beach or the yacht.
Yes. A little bit beach is also fine.
Mr. Şahin, thanks very much indeed for joining us and congratulations from all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.